to the Kiln Garage. We're your hosts, Katie
and Rebecca.
We are ceramicists and clay educators.
Together, we'll explore the intersections of clay, art, and community.
Each week, we'll unpack stories of creative expression, shared spaces, and the role of clay in building meaningful connections.
We're so happy you're here. Okay. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Rebecca. Or should I say Becky?
Oh my God. Katie spent the Super Bowl with my family, and they all call me Becky up there.
Which is so weird.
So that's a thing.
Because everybody at the studio calls you Rebecca.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I've been going by Rebecca for probably I don't know, a long time.
Yeah.
I would say most of my adult life.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Joey.
Yeah.
I've always called him Joey.
Well, yes.
But he introduces himself as Joseph.
Yes, he does.
He's like, "Hi, I'm Joseph."
So I feel really bad because he said when I asked him, I was like, "What do you like to be called?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "I don't know, Joseph." And I was like, "Can I call you Joe?" And I was like, "Yeah, Joe's fine."
Yeah.
But because you call him Joey, I catch myself calling him Joey.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about
No,
that.
no, he's fine with it. He's fine with it.
But that's what happens when you merge friends and family together.
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't know, gets
Yeah,
blurry.
it does.
But it's great. So, we realized that we haven't really formally thanked or introduced the wonderful people who edited our jingle and our video
And
for the
recorded
intro.
and composed.
Yes, recorded and composed, because without them, there's no way
you wouldn't have the Kiln Garage.
I'm not even going to try to show you what it would sound like without the editing.
The editing. Yes, so huge shout out to Kayla
and Ben.
Adeletto. Kayla and Ben Adeletto of Nylon Ghost, by the way.
Ghost.
They're
in a band.
Yep. It's their local Philly band. And they're talented musicians and composers.
They're so cool.
Very cool.
They are the coolest.
Kayla wrote our jingle, and then she helped us record it, and then she mixed it. She put her magic on it, and
so fast. We went over for pizza, and it was done.
Yeah. She was like, "Well, let's wrap this baby up."
I know. It's crazy. And then Ben also worked really fast on the video. Yeah. He came in and he got some shots of us. And then, I don't know, a few days later, it was like, "Here you go."
Yeah. And that's what you see at the beginning of the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
So thank you so much. We love you.
Love you. Love you so much.
And Kayla's going to be a guest soon on the podcast.
She will.
And she's really looking forward to it as well.
Oh, yeah. She's going to be a great guest. Okay. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
What else? Do we have any other updates or any other?
Well, today is, on the day that we're recording this, is the Eagles parade.
And Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's. And happy Eagles Super Bowl parade.
Yeah.
I wanted to go, but I was like, nah, it's way too much. Way too much. The Patco is only going one way in until 1:00. So I would just now be getting on the Patco back.
And it would have been mobbed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
So I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I'll watch it on Instagram later.
Yeah. I know you wanted to go.
That's all right.
I had zero interest.
That's all right.
Oh my gosh. And today at the studio for Valentine's Day, we're having an event.
Mm-hmm.
We're making heart-shaped boxes or vessels.
It's gonna be fun.
We mentioned last time that our husbands are coming.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen.
They're so excited.
They're excited. It's going to be great.
I think they're going to have a great time while we're teaching. They can make something for us
Yeah.
and hang out.
Blake asked if he could make something else also.
No. I'm just kidding. I don't know. You can make whatever.
He said, make whatever you want,
Yeah. Well,
but
Aaron
it
can
has
help
to be
him.
nice. Yes.
Aaron can, well, I don't know if Aaron should help him.
Aaron could help.
Aaron could help for sure.
He could help.
Aaron
Yeah,
knows the basics.
he does. But yeah, something happened in the reclaim
Oh, yes.
that we need to address immediately.
Absolutely.
We found a piece of bisque in the reclaim.
Dun, dun,
I think
dun.
you found it, right?
Yeah,
You were putting it into the pug.
I hurt myself.
Yeah, you got a boo-boo.
Yeah.
Scary.
I was putting the clay into the pug mill and I felt something sharp and I was like, ouch, what's that? And I pulled it out and it was a full piece of bisque. And for those of you who don't know pottery, bisqueware is fired greenware. So greenware is before it's fired, right? It's still technically clay. But when you fire it, the first firing, the bisque firing, it becomes ceramic. So it was like an actual ceramic piece of clay, which you cannot recycle or put in the pug. So
Right.
it was shocking. We were shocked.
It was really scary. What would have happened if we had run it through the pug? Would it have broken the pug at all?
I don't
Or
know.
would it have chipped it down and then it would have hurt some of our students
Yeah.
probably? I mean, for sure.
Yeah, I think it would have ground it down because the pug mill is very strong.
Yeah.
I think it would have like ground it down to like smaller pieces, which would have been sharper and more dangerous. And then we would have found it later in the clay while we were
Oh,
throwing. Yeah, it's
God, I
not
can just
good.
imagine someone's hand getting sliced up
Yeah.
from like throwing with a piece of bisque in it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was really bad. So, you know, it's hard, but even at even at the best of the best studios, stuff like this happens. And like, how do you prevent it? Just education.
Yeah.
Educating and make sure that, we have the systems in place to make sure that doesn't happen. But every once in a while, something crazy like that does happen.
Yeah. So today we're talking about about the relationship you have with clay and how when you are throwing or even hand building, like you need to there's a balance. There's a balance between being the boss of the clay and also listening to what the clay wants to do.
Right. Exactly. I feel like, I tell my students frequently when they're throwing on the wheel, like when you're centering,
Yeah.
you have to push it. You have to put it in its place. You're the boss. Be the boss of the clay. But, you know, when it comes off the wheel, that's when like we're no longer the boss.
Yeah.
Like the clay is the boss. And it's gonna tell you when it needs to be trimmed. Trim me. When it's ready to put attachments on, and if it's drying too fast or drying too slow or it's too thick or too thin, it's gonna crack.
Yep.
So you have to kind of really baby it.
Mhm. Okay, but that leads us into how drying is a pretty delicate process.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to dry things really slow here at the studio.
Very slow.
So we have our students and members put plastic on things and then it's this process of continuing to check on things as they're drying,
Mm-hmm.
to take a little peek. And then if things are not drying at all, like you got to get some airflow in there.
Right.
Got to loosen up your plastic. And but if you do too much of that, then it might dry too fast
Yeah.
or it might dry unevenly. Like the top of your pot
Yes.
might stay really wet and the bottom might get really dry, and that leads to cracking too.
Yeah. Uneven drying is a huge thing. So after you trim your pot, you want to put it upside down
Hmm.
so that the bottom, which is inherently thicker than the delicate rim, kind of gets evenly dried out. It's for
Hmm.
even drying. But I feel like it's such a delicate process. Like, and even like some students who have experience from other studios or experience on their own and they come here and they're like, "Oh, this is ready to go in the kiln room." I'm like, "Girl, you just attached that handle. Absolutely not." Like,
Wow.
you have to recover it, like, especially when you're doing attachments. To recover it in plastic and let it dry slowly. Um, Sometimes I leave my personal work, I leave under plastic until it's like bone dry coloring.
Yeah.
And then I'll uncover it and dry it the rest of the way out.
Yeah. You take a long time.
I'm very finicky.
Yeah. Tend to speed things up a little bit faster than you.
Which you can, it seems like.
It's funny because that's where I go faster than you.
Yes.
It's the only facet of life that I move faster than you.
Your clay dries faster. I
It
did
is.
notice that.
Yeah.
I was
Like
like,
I dried that
dang.
Furby out fast.
I was like, dang, she already that thing in the kiln that she just made, and it survived. I was
Yeah.
like shocked.
It's crazy. But I don't know. Was it something that was thrown that you're talking about?
Oh, I think your hand built stuff
Because
dries out faster.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
hand building in general
yeah,
typically dries faster.
yeah,
Like I feel like the things that I've been throwing, I'm pretty delicate with that.
yeah. Because you're adding so much water to the clay when you're throwing
Yes.
that, like,
It takes so long to dry.
yeah. And if it dries too fast, it just simply will crack. But yeah, sometimes students are like, "Is this ready? It's been covered for a week," and I like feel it, and I'm like, "No, not yet. Keep it covered."
Yeah.
And I do think that, like, it becomes, like, potter's preference over time.
Hmm.
Like, "Oh, well, after I trim my stuff, I leave it completely uncovered." Like, there are some people who do that, and it works for them.
That's
But
scary.
there's so many factors involved, though.
That's
The
true.
the humidity of the studio,
Yes.
like, where is your work in comparison to, like, say, for example, the vent that's blowing out heat right now because it's winter.
Hmm.
Like, there's
Hmm.
so many different factors, um, that it's like, it has to be Potter's preference eventually,
Yeah.
but with my students, like, I teach them to be, like, as delicate as possible so that they are not heartbroken too
Yeah.
fast.
I know. It's so sad when things crack.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking about the garage too,
Mhm.
and how our kiln garage
Mhm.
is like freezing.
It is.
It's so cold in there. There's no insulation.
No.
So like for things to be ready to go back to our kiln room is a little bit different than most other studios, I
Yeah.
would say. So
Yeah.
like these other students that are ready to bring stuff back after they attach,
Yeah.
those other studios probably didn't have an outside garage,
Yeah.
it was probably in the same building and probably had heat.
Yeah, it was probably, like, drying nice and like a drying room almost
Exactly.
type of thing.
Exactly. But here, things need to be like bone dry when they go
Mhm.
back
Yeah.
because it's so cold in there.
And also, like, when it's time to load the kiln, like, the we know it's time to load the kiln when the shelves are full. Like, when those 3 shelves are full, it's about a kiln's worth of work.
Yeah.
So, if people are bringing back stuff that's not truly bone dry, then, like, while we're loading, we can accidentally load something. Now, this probably wouldn't happen because 'cause we're touching every single piece, but, like, there might be something that gets loaded that isn't fully dry, and it could explode,
Yeah. And in the winter, it's hard. I have a hard time knowing. I
'cause
do
it's so cold.
because it's so cold and
Mhm.
cold clay and wet clay can feel very similar.
Yeah.
Because also, do you know humans can't perceive the difference between something cold and wet?
Really?
Yeah.
Ew.
Blake and I found this out because because the dryer, like the dryer at home for your clothes,
Oh.
like if it's not completely dry,
Mhm.
let me back up. So
It's wet.
it's wet. But it's in the basement. Our laundry is in the basement.
Yeah.
So like there have been times where like, you ran the dryer the night before and in the morning you go to get your clothes and it's cold. Like some of the
Mhm.
clothes are cold.
You're like, "This
And
is
you're
wet."
like, "Yeah." And you're like, "Is this wet? It feels wet."
Yeah.
So you run it again, and sometimes, yeah, it needed to go again,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's just cold.
Yeah.
And then he looked it up, and it's like a thing.
Wow.
So,
The human brain is weird.
I know it's very unsettling to me
Yeah.
that we can't tell the difference between something cold and wet.
That's
It's
scary, but yeah, that's what it is like when we're loading the kiln. We're always
Yeah,
like, "Is do you think this is dry or is it wet or is it cold?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
And I think a lot of the times we can tell with the color of the
yes.
clay. Like, we can really, you know I've definitely brought a few things over, and you're like, "No, no, put that back."
Put that back, Rebecca,
That's not
or so
ready.
help me. Put that thing back where you found it, or so help
These
me.
teapots are not ready. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. But we also, I mean, back to our firing process for bisque, I mean, we do a hold, right? Or what is it called?
yeah, we do a preheat.
A preheat,
Yeah,
not
we
a hold.
do a preheat. Sorry, I yawned. We do a preheat. I used to do like a 2-hour preheat. Um, but now that we have like so many more students and like varying levels of work going into the kiln, we just do a
Yeah.
4-hour.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
safer.
it's safer. It's
Yeah.
just better to do it, and we haven't had many issues with it. Even some pieces that are questionable have gone in, and I'm like, I think the 4-hour
Yeah.
preheat will take
Like
care of this.
Barnaby.
Barnaby?
So Barnaby was a rabbit that our student made.
Yes.
And we told her it was way too thick and we couldn't fire it.
Yeah.
It was so heavy.
Yeah.
Um, but it was interesting because we broke it open over the reclaim
Yeah.
and it was all dry.
Wow.
So it would have been fine. However, I
Yeah.
still don't think we should have fired it.
No,
It
that thing was
was
a weapon.
it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
But shout out to Barnaby and Daniela.
yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, because it was a beautiful piece,
It was.
but
It
it
was.
it wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be. And you know what? She's Danielle is learning so much.
She is.
I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
And, like, she doesn't get upset. Like, when I told her we had to reclaim Barnaby, she wasn't upset.
Yeah.
Like, she understood,
Yeah.
It's great.
Danielle is one of our teen students.
Yeah.
And so, which we don't have very many of them, so it's it's really fun to like interact with them because you get to like see like the gears turning
Yeah.
and they're learning in real time.
Yeah.
It's different from when like adults are learning.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Teens are fun.
they are.
Yeah.
They're funny too. They say teens
Crazy.
say the darndest things.
They sure do.
Maddie's fun too. She says some fun
I know.
things.
I don't get to hang out with her as much
She
because she
called
comes on Wednesdays.
she called Nick middle-aged. We were like, "Oh my God, Maddie." It
What?
was really funny.
How old is Nick? Nick's younger than me.
Yeah, Nick just turned 30 last year.
Oh my god.
Yeah, she was like, "Wow, you guys are middle-aged." And we were like, "Wow."
Oh my god.
I know. It was shocking.
That is shocking.
Nick was like his soul left his body. He was
I'm
like,
sure.
"Oh."
I'm sure. Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
Maddie.
She's funny.
She is funny.
She's asked me, "Am I gonna inherit the studio?" It's like, girl, you are not like in terms of like age for inheriting something from me, like you're not that far behind me.
Yeah. She's gonna be just as old.
Yeah. It's like you're gonna be like 70 and I'm gonna be like 85.
Exactly.
Like, no.
No.
She's like,
Baby Nora,
baby
however.
Nora though.
Baby Nora will get the studio.
I told her that. I said, baby Nora will inherit the studio. And she was like, "Ah, I got beat by a 1-year-old." It's like, girl. She's funny.
Oh, baby Nora. Back to
Back
pottery.
to pottery.
Um,
Attachments.
yeah, attachments.
I love attachments.
Yes, attachments are great.
I love handles.
Yeah.
I love attaching handles. It's like my favorite thing. Um, and I feel like handles, it's like for a lot of potters, it's like a love-hate relationship.
Mhm.
Um, but I've learned to love them. I love putting handles on things. So, um, with the drying times,
Mhm.
like I'll leave it covered for like a week after I've attached something.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I think it comes down to potter's preference.
Yeah. I do too. I'm thinking about the handles I've done, and I also think I leave them for like a week
Yeah.
covered. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, and like with hand building,
Mhm.
like you're not adding water to it.
Right.
So like you're building everything at like this like wet stage of clay, but it's not like adding a bunch of water. So
Yeah.
I think like the clay just dries faster and better
Mhm.
because it's all at the same consistency.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when you're throwing something, you added so much water to your thrown piece, and now you're introducing this handle, which also had a bunch of water if you pulled it,
Right, right.
and, like, it's just more delicate.
It's crazy though because I feel like hand building is the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Like things could dry really fast
That's true.
when you're hand building. So that makes attaching things pretty challenging also. Like I feel like if you're not doing it all in one sitting, you really have to wrap it
Mhm.
really, really well. Whereas like a thrown piece, you have to wrap it well to be
Mhm.
ready for attachments and trimming, but
Mhm.
also you need it to dry a little bit
Yeah,
in order to trim,
yeah,
right? Like it's
exactly. Like, I was telling, we have a student who was trying to create a hand-built piece, and it keeps cracking. And
mm,
she was like, "Why does it keep cracking?" And I was like, "Are you building it on the same day?" And
mhm.
she's like, "No, like I cover it and then I come back and add to it." And I'm like, "It's drying too fast."
Yeah, no.
And like you're just making it worse. And I was trying to like
Yeah.
help her understand that. She ended up scrapping it. I think she's gonna start over, but I was like, she's like, "Why does this keep happening?" I was like, "It has to do with the drying."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Hand building, it's really good to do it all in one shot,
Yep.
which just makes things a lengthy process.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like that's why we're making Furbies for 4 hours because
Yeah.
you just
You gotta
kind of
do it.
have to do it.
Once you start it, you have to finish it. Finish your Furby.
Yeah.
Finish your
Finish
Furby.
your
Then you have
Furby.
dessert.
No dessert until we finish your Furby.
So good.
Um, I don't know. Any tips for beginners when it comes to attachments? I feel like all of these things are
Yeah, with attachments for beginners, my tip for beginners is just do it. Which is usually my advice for beginners. Um,
just do
Obviously,
it.
make sure you score your attachments,
Mhm.
both the thing you're attaching and your form.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't add necessarily slip, but I would add a dab of water to create some slip with your scoring tool.
Yeah,
And then blend, blend, blend.
lots of blending.
So much
I
blending.
would agree. Hand building is like all blending.
Yeah,
The slip thing is really interesting though, because I remember learning in high school ceramics
yeah,
to like add slip,
yeah.
and that has not worked for me now. Like
It's like
that
too
is
much.
not the way.
Yeah, it's
It's
too much.
crazy though. Like why
Yeah.
do they teach that though?
Well, because I think they're trying to like lay a foundation of like you do need a little bit of like slip,
But too much is no
but
good.
too much is bad. Yeah,
And I'm
it's
thinking about the
crazy.
things that I made in high school, and I remember like using a lot of slip, and they all
Mhm.
survived. Like I have pieces at my mom's house. They're great.
Yeah,
I should have shown you when you were
yeah,
there. Forgot. Um, but when I've tried that more recently, like it's a bad news.
yeah. It's just like the drying. It's like the
It's
slip.
a difference in the drying times.
Yep,
That's what it is.
it's adding too much moisture.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. When the other stuff is so plastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some other tips for beginners. Um, especially with wheel throwing, I feel like a lot of people wanted to know like more tips for wheel throwing.
Mhm.
Um, you really have to focus on cylinders.
Yes.
Cylinders are the base of all pottery forms.
Mhm.
So if you can master throwing a cylinder, as boring as it sounds, you can make anything.
Yeah.
Become a master at cylinders.
Master of cylinders. It's wild though. It's really crazy to think that everything comes from a cylinder shape.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I think a lot of people come in, they're like, I want to go big.
I know
Like everyone's got this idea of like,
throwing 5 pounds of clay.
yeah. And for wheel throwing, but also for hand building,
Hmm.
maybe don't start with that.
Yeah.
It's it's harder than it seems.
Hmm.
And it goes into like the drying times of things for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, for throwing too, like if you're trying to throw something like really big, you're not some people don't tend to think about like how am I going to trim this, you
right.
know? Especially
Yes.
if there's like different shapes involved, different forms involved, like say you throw a vase with like a really skinny neck. Well, how are you going to trim that? Like you're going to have to throw a chuck for it and your chuck is going to be just as big and tall. It's like a whole nother piece of pottery, you
That's
know?
wild. Yeah.
So yeah, start small. Start
Mhm.
small, pound and a quarter to a pound and a half of clay, and try to use every ounce of clay to make your cylinder.
Mhm.
And that's what you're gonna use to, bring it to life, shape it, but it starts as a cylinder.
Yeah. 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 And same thing with hand building. A lot of people, especially now that we have this slab roller, we're experiencing a lot of students and members going big
Yeah,
with slabs.
yeah.
Um,
Which is good.
which
Like
is really cool. And
we you can.
but you also need to be really mindful of how you dry things and how you attach things because a really big slab can also crack really easily.
Very easily.
Yeah, especially if it's like a platter, you know?
Oof. Platters are hard. Platters and plates, anything flat is really hard,
It
and
is.
it's not hard because it's hard to make, it's hard because of the drying, the uneven drying.
Yes, and also the process.
Mhm.
Like we've seen some flat things warp a little bit
Yep,
in the kiln too during bisque fire and glaze fires.
yep,
So, you know, it it's very simple to use a mold
yeah,
and make a really beautiful big platter, but to follow it through the entire process is a gamble of
it's
sorts.
tricky because the
Yeah,
clay
it
remembers.
does.
So, even from, like, the moment you're rolling your slab and, like, transporting it to whatever table you're working at, if you don't, like, support your slab as you're moving it or flipping it or whatever, like, the clay has, like, a memory of sorts, and it's gonna, like, remember that time when I was, like, all floppy in the wind from the slab roller to the table? I'm gonna do that in the kiln.
It's gonna be so cool.
Imma do that. I'm gonna warp in the kiln.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it's
It
saying.
is. It is.
And it does.
It does.
It works. So that's why, it's tricky. But it all goes back to like what we talked about on a previous episode about like building your relationship with the clay. If you keep building that relationship and you keep listening to what it wants from you and you keep giving it, what you want to get out of it,
Yeah.
just like a relationship, it eventually you come to this like agreement of sorts and you just know what your clay needs and what it wants.
Yeah.
And that's how I dry my stuff for a week.
Mhm.
But some potters are like, oh, well, me and my clay, we only dry for like 2 days. And it's like, that's great for you. I'm glad your relationship is
2 days?
I did risk it for the biscuit though, with some student pieces. Um, there was like some pieces from a Thursday night class that were like literally wet, dude, like freshly trimmed.
Oh, no.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try something. And I uncovered them and I stuck them next to the kiln as it was doing bisque firing.
It worked.
And it worked. They all dried, bone dry, no cracks.
Yeah,
And I was like,
which is amazing. That was very
it
risky.
was risky, but I feel like I ascended.
You did. You got the biscuit.
Got the biscuit. Chocolate biscuit. Let me show you how to risk it.
Yummy
Yummy
on
on
the
the
inside,
inside,
crunchy.
crusty on
Damn
the
it!
crunchy,
Crunchy. I was gonna say crunchy.
crusty,
Crusty on the
crusty on
edge.
the edges.
Edges.
Edge.
Edges are my
Yes.
lyrics. Oh my gosh. Ooh, this is good. Why don't you tell everybody about your 100 pot theory?
Oh, yes. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yes.
Um, and I didn't come up with it. Like I've heard it throughout the pottery community, but they say 100 pots. If you make 100 pots, they don't have to all like make it through the process, but like if you throw 100 pots on the wheel, you will be comfy
Mhm.
with throwing. You'll still need improvement, you'll still be learning, you're always learning, but you will finally get to a point where you're like, dang, I know how to throw on the wheel if you throw 100 pots.
You know, I really wish I kept better track. I'm
Well,
so
you
curious.
can kind of do the math.
You think?
Yeah.
I guess I could
Like you've been
think
throwing
back.
for how many weeks?
13, 14?
14.
Yeah.
14 times an average of 2 pots a week.
Okay.
So 14 times 2, 28.
Mm-hmm.
So you're on 28.
Yeah. I still got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it makes sense, right?
It does make sense. And even at 28, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But like you can tell, like, you know, so if you're taking one class a week, let's say you're a student who's taking classes for a whole year and you're taking one class a week for a whole year,
Mm-hmm.
52 weeks.
Yeah.
Give or take a couple. Average of 2 pots a week, give or take a couple. Right. 52 times 2, that's about 100 pots.
Yeah.
And that really is when I start to see a huge shift in students.
That's crazy.
My students who like they hit their year mark, it's like something happens and they're all of a sudden, you saw it with Karen.
Yeah.
Karen all of a sudden is like beep boop bop boop beep. She's throwing all these crazy forms.
She's always been so good.
She is amazing.
Oh my God.
Love her. That's
Yeah.
why she was student of the year in 2024.
Student of the year, Karen.
Karen was student of the year 2024. And then we had January student of the month was Erica.
Yep.
And then February student of the month is Nay.
Yeah.
So we love our students of the month.
We do. We do. They're perfect. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I love that. Um, it's funny because so all these like wheel things, I try to like think about how it could be related to hand building also.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I don't know if there's like a number, I would say, of things
Mm.
that you would I just don't know. I think it's just
Just keep going.
you just kind of keep going
Yeah.
and you get a feel for it. And I do think that sometimes hand building, like people get it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people, you know, you have to work on it. You have to have the patience.
Yeah, there's a lot of patience involved.
Yeah. With everything. But especially like all that smoothing and blending, like it's so repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tedious.
it is.
But I do feel like, pottery, that as a very impatient person, when I started pottery, I had to learn patience real fast. And sometimes I still don't have patience, and I'm like, I'm gonna put this in the kiln and see what happens. And then it like cracks or something, and I'm like, oh well, I guess I wasn't patient enough. So it requires a lot of
It
patience.
does. John C. John C. wants to know what your favorite ways to achieve texture on pottery is.
Wow, that's a question.
It is a question because there's so many things.
There are so many.
Well, I'm going to stick to the thing that I've been saying for a few episodes is carving with that diamond core tool. It's
I
my
do
favorite.
love a good carve.
But you know what else is really cool?
Hmm.
Those rolling pins with patterns.
Oh
Like
yes,
Ray had those ones that look like stones. So
yes,
like if you want to make something that looks like a stone castle,
yeah.
like you can use these imprinted,
Textured rollers.
yeah, textured rollers. And sometimes there's like a print or a pattern like stone or wood,
Hmm.
but sometimes there's like we have those holiday ones with like the reindeer or
Yeah,
the gingerbread people and
yeah,
like festive designs.
right.
So that's really fun. You can use them as a way to kind of make more of like your piece like realistic, like as a thing, like the stone castle, for
Yeah,
example. Or you can use it to achieve like just a fun decorative component, like a
yeah.
star.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite is probably adding slip. Um, Specifically, I really enjoy using like colored slip, like I do on
Mhm.
my like gelatinous cube mugs.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Um, it kind of goes along with like carving as well, like sgraffito, like using colored slip and then like carving out
Mhm.
like a design. I would say that's probably like my favorite. Um, Something I'd like to like experiment more with is like creating texture like in the trimming stage.
Yeah.
Like on the wheel, when you're trimming, you can use a tool to like, it's called chattering.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like when you kind of just like let the tool go crazy and it creates like this really cool texture.
Yeah.
And I think you can either emphasize the texture with like a carving tool or you can just let the glaze go over it and see what happens.
Karen, actually,
Yeah.
she's done that a few times.
Yeah.
And I think the first time she said it was
y-
accidental.
Yeah.
And then I think she started doing it more intentionally.
Hmm.
It's very cool.
And all of her pieces, she likes using like a lot of glaze work to like emphasize like her piece's texture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that that's like it goes hand in hand with like glaze work,
Yeah, for sure.
which I think we're going to talk about next episode.
I think so. I think next episode is all about glaze.
Yeah.
Yeah, glazes and underglazes. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about next week.
Um, do we have another question?
I don't know. Do we?
Let's see.
We can take a look. Mud Girl wants to know, how can I make a living making my pots?
Oh, yikes. That's another loaded question.
It
We
is.
keep getting these loaded questions.
They're good questions, though.
They are. My biggest piece of advice would be to really perfect your craft. Maybe not perfect,
Get
but
comfy. Have
I
you
would,
made 100 pots yet?
yeah. Once you hit your 100 pot mark and you're like, hey, I want to make a living off of this. I want to sell my work. Well, selling your work is one of the ways you can make a living
Yes.
off of, creating your pottery. Um, but there's a lot involved with it. I think um, Mud Girl, to answer your question, I think selling your work at, you know, local art shows or even galleries, things like that, that's a way to definitely make a living.
Mhm.
But I do think that that warrants like a whole episode.
I look forward to that episode. It's a good
Yeah,
episode.
that would,
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
Just how to be a working artist in general, I
yes,
think is it's a really important conversation.
a big conversation
Yeah. It might even be a mini series.
with like many moving parts.
Mhm.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. That's gonna your question turned into a whole episode suggestion.
Yeah. It's perfect. Very excited. I would agree though. Just like get out there.
Yeah,
You just have to start.
just do it.
Just do it.
That's our advice.
Do we want to shout out a local eatery?
We do.
Who is
This
it?
week, this week, we're shouting out one of my favorite restaurants ever in this area, Nimet Palace.
So good.
I love Nimet Palace.
I want to go there.
We should go.
I want to go.
We should go.
Aaron was telling me that they treat you like a princess.
They do.
I didn't know.
Yes, because it's your palace. They say, "Welcome to your palace. Anything you want."
I didn't know. He said that they also ask you what kind of music you want to listen to.
You can request a song and they'll put it on. I usually request a Taylor Swift song.
Really? Not Wicked?
Well, I haven't been. I haven't eaten in since Wicked has come out.
We should go and we should request Popular
Yeah, absolutely.
or Defying Gravity. Defying Gravity might be a little too intense.
Yeah, I think Popular.
Or that other song,
Loathing.
Loathing,
Yeah.
which is not what it's called. But
It's not called Loathing?
I don't think it is. I don't think that's the title of the song. That's what we all call it.
Yeah.
That's what it should be called.
Oh, it's called What Is This Feeling? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, when we go to Nimet Palace next, we're definitely gonna request a song. Um, I love them so much. I usually get chicken tikka masala,
Of course.
medium spice level,
Not hot.
not hot. Aaron does hot. Aaron's like he wants to be like sweating.
Yeah.
He calls it a rebirth. He's like, I want to be rebirthed after I eat my Indian food.
Oh my God.
But I also get, oh, I love everything there. But there's this dish, it's like a sizzly platter. It's called
Mm.
Afghani chicken.
That was
It's
so good.
so good. It's like a part of
Mm.
like the staple of like our order now. I'm like, Afghani chicken, have to get it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I've only had it once. We got it takeout here,
But you loved it.
but I loved it and it was so good. And Katie just ordered everything and I just ate
Oh
everything.
yeah, we did. We did like we did the Afghani chicken.
We
We
did.
did the chicken tikka
Yep.
masala,
We did garlic naan.
garlic
We did
naan.
samosas.
The meat samosas are
Mhm.
so good.
So good.
I also love their tandoori salmon.
Ooh.
It's so good. And if you have the
Mm.
chicken tikka masala sauce on hand, you can like dip the tandoori salmon in the sauce.
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
Oh my God.
We should eat there today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time. And be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share with all of your friends.
Comment
Comment your questions or just how much you love us,
so much.
how good of a job we're doing.
Yes, please let us know that you're actually here and listening and we're not just talking to no one.
Yeah.
We're not.
No, I don't think we are. People are listening. People are starting to listen.
Jody.
And yeah, Joe. Joe
Hi.
listened to all the episodes?
Oh, Jody.
Oh, Jody. I thought you said Joey. Yes, Jody.
The Kiln
Kayla's gonna watch all the episodes. She
Yeah.
said last night that she was gonna watch.
Yeah.
And Yeah, everyone's tuning in. It's very exciting. And Katie also printed up flyers for the studio because Kayla was like, hello,
Get those flyers up.
get those flyers out. You got to share, you know? So now we have the Kiln Garage flyers all over the place, which is cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.